over here. So this is going to be all of my poetry books, all my poetry collection that I'm going to be going through today. I thought of doing it like shelf by shelf, but I think like doing it by genre I think makes a little bit more sense. To be honest with you, I'm holding these books up for longer because so I can like pick a thumbnail from here. But anyways, I think I'm sure from those 30 seconds I'll find something. Anyways, before we begin, I will say I spent like 20 minutes looking for my phone. I fucking lost my phone in my own apartment for like 15-20 minutes, and I was just like frantically looking around thinking that I was going insane, but it was right here. It was like on a counter, and I just fucking forgot about it. So that delayed me starting to film this video by 15 minutes of me just like a fool searching in I looked in the fridge as if it would be there, but I was just anyways, but that's over now. Let's talk about some books, dudes. Let's talk about some books. So First off, we have probably easily the oldest one. This is a collection of Keats' poetical works. Keats' poetical works. Keats and Yeats on your side, but Wild is on mine, which I think is from What Cemetery Gates by the Smiths. Anyways, Keats' poetical works, as you can see, very, very, very old, wonderful, deep red color, almost the same, a little darker actually than my nails over here. Don't pay attention to the little imperfections, just pretend that my nails are looking perfect. This is like many of the older books that I have in my little collection over here. It's from my grandparents' collection. I found this in my parents' house, which is where they used to stay. And yeah, we have this interesting thing over here. I'm not sure what that is or what that means, but yeah, this is just and also look at the old bookishness of the pages here, all uneven and very cool, very full of character, this one. But yeah, Keats is a name that I heard obviously in that Smith song, and also just in general learning about poetry. And then we actually did do a Keats poem actually, before I get into like the rambles, let me just talk about how my preferred way of kind of absorbing this poetry, of reading it, because I don't read them like I'm not like, okay, I'm gonna do this poetry collection like this, we can just do them all like front to back. My ideal way of reading and enjoying poetry is by usually in like an evening when I want to just relax. I'll make like a nice cup of tea, maybe if I have a scented candle, light that, what have you, like set a nice vibe, and then I will randomly choose a poem from a collection such as this one and just kind of read it and take it in and really kind of think about it, and then maybe do a handful if I'm feeling like it. So that's how I read poetry. I thought that would just be interesting to note before I just start like rambling for an eternity. So the interesting thing is, I did not think we did Keats in high school, but then one day I had like a poetry session as I just described, where I just had like a nice cup of tea and I was sitting in one of my chairs here, and I think I probably lit a candle that was scented or something like that, and then I found this poem. Just trying to find it in the contents over here. Here we go, page 303. Let's actually see if we can find a year that this was published. That would be pretty interesting. Oh yeah, we actually have a drawing of the man himself, John Keats, which is very nice, and then it has this nice little protective which I love. Page 303, here we go. This is quite a famous poem, actually, a sonnet, which is called, it's a sonnet often referred to as, like the first line, which is, when I have fears that I may cease to be. So I read this poem, and I thought, wow, you know what, I might as well just read it now. So here we go. This is a sonnet by John Keats, when I have fears that I may cease to be. Here we go. When I have fears that I may cease to be, before my pen has gleaned my teeming brain, before high-piled books in charactery hold like rich garners the full ripened grain, when I behold upon the night's starred face huge cloudy symbols of a high romance, and think that I may never live to trace their shadows with a magic hand of trance. I think that's meant to rhyme with romance, but I'm just going to speak in my own accent. With a magic hand of trance. And when I feel, fair creature of an hour, that I shall never look upon thee more, never have a relish in the fairy power of unreflecting love, then on the shore of the wide world I stand alone, and think to love and fame to nothingness do sink. So I read that one evening, and I thought, wow, that kind of resonated with me. And then I spoke to my friend about it, and I was like, oh dude, you know, oh man, I just opened to a random page and I found this like poem and it really resonated with me. Isn't that so cool? Here's what it's called, and then I go on about it. And then I send her a voice note saying all this, and then she's like, dude, we did this poem in high school, what are you talking about? And I completely, like, I couldn't even remember it. And there are other poems we did, like John Donne, The Fly, that I remember us doing. So I generally think I have pretty good memory about this kind of stuff, but this one completely was lost on me. I never, like, it completely got like deleted out of my brain after, like, we did it in English class in high school. So pretty interesting. And yeah, many of these I haven't read, as I said. I just kind of open them to a random page and read one. And the funny thing about that is, I think that the brain is like the human brain is like looking for patterns and connections everywhere, and will kind of work hard to create them even when they don't exist. It's sort of part of why, like, horoscopes, like, anyone can read any horoscope and find a way that it resonates with them, because your mind will like create connections and make a way for it to make sense. And it's like a similar thing for like opening up to a random poem. Like, no matter what, I feel like my mind, when I'm reading it, will find a way to make it feel relevant to me. Like, I will think of like the metaphors and like how they apply to my life and what I'm like going through or whatever at the time. So then it feels like everyone is like, whoa dude, that's so crazy that I went to like this specific poem and like it resonates with me so much. But I think it's not like some incredible like happenstance or whatever. I think any poem, I feel like when I do that, my mind would find a way to make it like relevant to me in the moment, which I think is really cool. But anyways, the next collection we have over here is British Romantic Poets, recent revaluations. Yes, British Romantic Poets, recent revaluations, edited by Shiv K. Kumar. Also relatively old, from my grandparents' collection. This one is not actually a book of poetry. It is well, as it says, it's recent revaluation. So it's really people's essays and things about this era of poetry, British Romantic poetry. And I have read a bit of it. Here's the blue cover without the little protective munching on it. But I like the protective thing. It has that nice illustration of a flower over there. So what's interesting about this is it kind of talks about poetry. None of the poems in question are actually included, but I find it quite usually I'm not into this kind of thing. And when I picked this up from the like bookshelf at my parents' parents' house, I thought it was a collection of British romantic poems, but then when I read it, I realized no, it's just a collection of essays, as it says here, reevaluations about these poems. And I was kind of like bummed out by that at first, but then I just kind of kept reading. And yeah, I find it to be pretty interesting. It's a collection of like academic essays, and I always, when I was in university, I did a few electives. I did 2 courses of English literature and 3 in philosophy as like electives for my degree. And I always found the academic essays so interesting. It's a kind of genre of literature that is so kind of unique and really interesting and cool, and really kind of makes you think about, either the philosophy that you're reading or like the literature that you're reading. So I always found those quite good to read. And this is essentially just a collection of those, which I really enjoy. The interesting thing about the British romantic poets is that they speak about how it's not like the romantic genre of poetry is not really a genre in the way that it defines like certain aspects that are shared throughout all of these different like poems or poets. It more defines like a time period. Let me try to find the. I don't think I'm gonna find it here. Hopefully I underlined it. Here we go. In his Romanticism and the Modern Ego from 1943, Jacques Bourzoon has made a good collection of some of the definitions that have been more or less widely used in the past 50 years. A return to the Middle Ages, a love of the exotic, the revolt from reason, a vindication of the individual, a liberation of the unconscious, a reaction against scientific method, a revival of pantheism, a revival of idealism, a revival of Catholicism, a rejection of artistic conventions, a return to emotionalism, a return to nature, and so on. The utmost confusion reigns in the whole field. So there, again, it's just a reference to how these poets are not necessarily collected by a theme. It's just sort of all these people that are kind of creating things in the same time, like all in, you have Keats, Shelley, like Byron, Wordsworth, Coleridge, etc. I'm reading it from the page. Because I honestly for a moment forgot who even the romantic poets are considered as, but anyways. Some of these people were friends like Shelley and Byron, I know, and maybe a few others, but it's interesting how it's like, as you like from that little description, that is such a wide and kind of vague description of genre. It's sort of like post-punk in music, where if you look at like different post-punk albums and bands, I guess like I don't know if you would call the Smiths post-punk, but the Smiths, like some of the like latest stuff by the Clash, and it's all so wide and like it doesn't make sense that it's even a genre. But because they were all kind of in response, again, post-punk in like response to a certain thing and made it around the same time, that like genre of post-punk is created to group them all together. I think a similar thing happened here with the romantic poets, the British romantic poets. So yes, a fun little piece of academic writing. Ooh, I'm just gonna read this line that instantly spoke to me and I opened up right now. The phrase reality's dark dream then applies to the firm, sad honesty of self-analysis which makes the greatness of that stanza. This result has come about by taking over the word dream from the original version, where the dark, distressful dream from which I'm not gonna, but anyways, very interesting analytical kind of writings about kind of romantic poetry in Britain, and all those famous poets and stuff. So very cool, very interesting book about poetry, not a poetry collection in itself. Next up, we do have an actual collection of romantic poetry. It is the Penguin Book of English Romantic Verse. So let me just read like the blurb at the back here. So the Firstly, the cover shows a detail of Horse Frightened by Lion by George Stubbs, which is located in the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool, if you are interested to know more. I like how the lion's just kind of chilling there, not even really like being aggressive. This was 10 rand and 90 cents. What a time to be alive. I wish I could buy a fucking collection of poetry for 10 rand and 90 cents now. Anyways, so the authors listed at the back here are Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge, Byron, Shelley, Clare, and Keats. And then it says the flowering of English romantic poetry began around the turn of the 18th century, which is the 1700s. I always need to like tell myself that. With all the centuries, like the 21st century now is like the 2000s. Anyways, born out of the impact of the Industrial Revolution, together with the changing view of man's place in the universe, the romantic movement was expressed in a poetry that valued nature as we value something we might lose, and placed emphasis on the individual as distinct from man, on personal values and human psychology. So the poetry of Blake or Wordsworth or Coleridge could be seen as some of the first fruits of our modern attitude to ourselves and the world. And then we have another little thing at the bottom. Arranging this anthology in chronological sequence, David Wright not only generous selections from the major poets, but also gives us an idea of the development of the romantic sensibility from its precursors like Gray, Cowper, and Burns, to the first hints of decadence in the poems of Darley and our man, Poe Edgar Allan himself. So, yeah, again, as I said, I just open to random pages and read them. We have, let me just try to find, this one belonged to my grandmother. Her name is written here in the front, and oh, I love this. Not really from like all my grandmother's notes. I think this is one from when she was teaching English. So I find that to be so cool. I mean, I don't really like it when I'm like trying to read the poem. I like to have like a clean kind of slate to kind of form my own opinions and thoughts about what's being written here. So I don't really like to have like another person's notes. But it's my grandmother who passed away when I was, I think, 4 years old, and so anything, and my grandfather passed like the same time, a little bit after her, and so anything that they've written or anything I always find so interesting, just to kind of get to know them a little more. As an adult, obviously I knew them when I was a child, but yeah, I'm always excited to see these little notes from my grandparents in these books. Oh, lovely title over here. Extempore Effusion upon the Death of James Hogg. Interesting. I'm just gonna try to find maybe a short one that I can read. Here, many long poems. We have lots of Lord Byron over here. We have Percy Shelley, of course. We are still in the Shelley section. Coleridge. I'm trying to find. Oh yeah, we have Edgar Allan Poe. Coleridge again. I think let's just read this Poe one because it's, actually, no, let's just read this Edgar Allan Poe one. For those who are unfamiliar, Poe lived from 1809 to 1841. And this poem is called Romance. Romance, who loves to nod and sing, Is it raining? Oh, it's just the wind in my earphones. That sounds weird. Anyways, romance, who loves to nod and sing, with a drowsy head and folded wing, among the green leaves as they shake, far down within some shadowy lake. To me a painted paroquet hath been a most familiar bird, taught me my alphabet to say, to lisp my very earliest word. While in the wild wood I did lie, a child with a most knowing eye. Of late eternal condor years so shake the very heaven on high, with tumult as they thunder by. I have no time for idle cares, through gazing on the unquiet sky. And when an hour with calmer wings its down upon my spirit flings, that little time with lyre and rhyme to while away forbidden things, my heart would feel to be a crime unless it trembled with the strings. Very, very nice. So, yeah, as I said, nice collection of English romantic verse, edited with an introduction by David Wright. Yeah, just a very nice collection of poetry. I've read this one a little bit. Probably the Keats have done a little bit more. But yeah, a nice little collection over here with a nice evocative cover as well. Okay, we have three little poetry books left. First we have Poems by John Donne, from the Everyman's Library number 867, with a representation of the man himself up there that looks like, oh no, that's all like Latin. Anyways, it looks like maybe this is like when he was dead, because his eyes are closed. But anyways, a collection of John Donne poems by John Donne. Again, we have a nice old school predictive cover, and then the actual book itself is this nice blue. Again, this one belonged to my grandparents. We do not have any notes about who specifically it belonged to in the front. And then we have a little piece of writing over here. Every man, I will go with thee and be thy guide in thy most need to go by thy side. Very nice. So yes, as I said before, John Donne, the one poem that we did by him in high school was the fly or the flea. I think it's the fly, I'm pretty sure. Let me try to find it. Find it over here. The flea, not the fly. I'm an idiot. Page 26. I remember this being quite like spicy in school. I don't think I'll read it because I think it'll kind of fuck up the kind of vibe we're going for here. But yeah, you can read it for yourself. The Flea by John Donne. I remember the class because it's kind of like spicy and about kind of sexual relation kind of stuff. So the class was very like, ooh, oh my word. I think it was like that realization that even like old-timey people, I think we were like 16 or 17 when we did this in school. Like, it was one of those times you're like, oh wow, wait, old people were like not just like these completely sterile beings. I guess kind of Shakespeare. We got that vibe as well with some of the things, like some of his jokes and the things that he mentions. Because I think sometimes, especially when you're young, old-timey people seem so different, and like they lived in another world almost. But in fact, they had many of the same kind of feelings toward things as we do. Obviously, like different, but you know, more similar than I think you would first assume. I'm trying to find My lunch break is about to end, so maybe we will just, if I can't find one soon, I might I guess this one, The Paradox. Again, this is by John Donne, The Paradox. No lover saith, I love, nor any other can judge a perfect lover. He thinks that else none can, nor will agree that any loves but he. I cannot say I loved, for who can say he was killed yesterday? Love with excess of heat, more young than old, death kills with too much cold. We die but once, and who loved last did die. He that saith twice doth lie. For though he seem to move and stir a while, it doth the sense beguile. Such life is like the light which bideth yet, when the light's life is set, or like the heat which fire in solid matter leaves behind 2 hours after. Once I loved and died, and am now become mine epitaph and tomb. Here dead men speak their last, and so do I. Love slain, lo, here I lie. Very interesting. One of the things I do enjoy about reading, that was a very loud bird. One of the things I do enjoy about reading all these like old poems from the 1800s is just the language can be difficult to understand when you first read it, but you can generally make sense of it if you like put in the effort. Also, like, it just feels kind of flowery, and I just like I guess because like the feeling of saying it and hearing it is so like unique and different to our everyday language that it just adds another layer of it that I really enjoy. So yeah, I enjoy kind of the old English in many of these poems. Next up we have, moving away from the romantics, we have, I guess maybe is Donne considered a romantic? I guess maybe not. This is the Metaphysical Poets and revised edition. This was R2.30 in November 1975. The Metaphysical Poets, introduced and edited by Helen Gardner, and then the cover designed by Germano Fassetti shows a detail from Sir Thomas Aston at the deathbed of his first wife by John Souch, which is located in the Manchester Art Gallery. Very interesting. We have a skull over there. I enjoy skulls, the imagery, and bones and that kind of thing. We do not have, again, this belonged to my grandparents, we do not have any of their names. I don't know if it was my grandmother, probably my grandmother, because she taught English. My grandfather, I think, did not. I think he did like maths and that kind of thing. Oh yeah, my grandmother's handwriting is definitely yeah, so we have a few interesting things here. We have William Shakespeare. I think the introduction talks a bit about what, I think the flea is in here as well, actually, because I remember that being spoken about as an example in the beginning. We have the Phoenix and the Turtle by William Shakespeare in here. Yeah, the flea is in here, dude. Page 57 by John Donne. So I think let me just make sure. Firstly, I'm reading the introduction now. The term metaphysical poets came into being long after the popes to whom we apply it were dead. Okay, here's an interesting line. This is it being romantic poetry. It makes demands upon the reader and challenges him or them to make it out. It does not attempt to attract the lazy, and its lovers, have always a certain sense of being a privileged class, able to enjoy what is beyond times. They were chamber poets, as Drayton, with the jealousy of the professional for the amateur, complains. Their poems pass from hand to hand in manuscript. Okay, wait. I'm skipping here. The first characteristic that I shall isolate in trying to discuss the admittedly vague, and it is often thought unsatisfactory term, metaphysical poetry in its concentration. The reader is held to an idea or a line of argument. They are not invited to pause upon a passage, wander with it, and muse upon it, and reflect upon it, and bring home to it, and prophesy upon it, and dream upon it, as a starting post towards all the 32 palaces. Keats' advice can be followed profitably with much poetry, particularly with Elizabethan and Romantic poetry, but metaphysical poetry demands that we pay attention and read on. I'm not going to read. Wait, here's actually interesting. The second characteristic of metaphysical poetry, in its most immediately striking feature, is its fondness for conceits. And here, of course, Johnson and Donne part company. A conceit is a comparison whose ingenuity is more striking than its justness, or at least is more immediately striking. All comparisons discover likeness in things unlike. A comparison becomes a conceit when we are made to concede likeness while being strongly conscious of unlikeness. So I think the flea, I think, is where we spoke about this like in school. It's sort of finding something that can seem so different to humans, usually like humans and like the emotions we can feel, and kind of drawing a comparison or creating a metaphor like with a flea and with desiring a person, and like using a flea to kind of project that feeling, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, very interesting. As I said, we have some William Shakespeare in here, Aurelian Townshend, O.L. Feltham. Let's try to find a nice one to read very quickly. The Wall, Aaron Angels. Fuck it, let's just read this William Shakespeare because it's quite short. No, it's not. No, I thought it ended here. It actually ends way later. I'm trying to find one that looks kind of like nice and not about like death. Literally, I just found one called Death. Song. Bum 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 bum. I don't think I'm going to find a nice one because I'm just not. It's not coming to me right now. But this is gonna be a long video, I'm realizing. On Zacchaeus, let's. Dude, my arms are getting sore. I'm holding the books now. You know what? I feel like I read enough of the introduction. I couldn't find like a nice, short enough poem to finish. As I said, I do have to go back to my lunch hour is about to finish, so I do have to kind of, unfortunately, wrap this up quite quickly, my friends. But yes, this is the Metaphysical Poets, introduced and edited by Helen Gardner. A nice, interesting collection again. Wonderful, evocative cover. You know, I love those. And finally, we have the most recent edition and the only one which I bought. We have Leonard Cohen, Let Us Compare Mythologies. I did do a whole video where I read my favorite poems from here, so I will like link that. I don't know where to point, but I will link that in the little info card so you can check that out. Yeah, I speak a lot about like how I discovered Leonard Cohen and everything in there. But yeah, basically it was published in 1956 when Leonard Cohen was 22 years old, which makes me feel like I've done nothing with my life as I am 24 going on 25. Let Us Compare Mythologies is his heard of a man who says words so beautifully that if he only speaks their name, women give themselves to him. As I'm reading this, I don't feel like this is like the right one for the vibe we're going for, but now I have to finish it. Oh, if I am dumb beside your body, while silence blossoms like tumors on our lips, it is because I hear a man climb the stairs to clear his throat outside our door. That's actually kinda cute. Implying that, I guess the implication is that the man from the first stanza is so like irresistible that this guy feels like he has to like keep his lover safe. That's kind of a weird one. I feel like we can't end on that. A lot of these are more sort of melancholy. Pray for that. I'm just looking for a nice short. And also I'm trying to think of one that I did not read in the other video. This one I like, but I read it in that video. Here we go, folk song. Nice and short. This is again folk song by Leonard Cohen. The ancient craftsman smiled when I asked him to blow a bottle to keep your tears in, and he smiled and hummed in rhythm with his hands as he carved delicate glass and stained it with the purple of a drifting evening sky. But the bottle is lost in a corner of my house. How could I know you could not cry? Very interesting, very wonderful. Again, this is Leonard Cohen's Let Us Compare Mythologies, which again is the only one of my whole poetry collection which I personally bought. It was not just taken from my grandparents' old collection. So yes, I think, friends, that's going to be the end of this video. A long one, I don't actually know how long, but it feels long. So thank you for spending this time with me. If you are still here at the end, I think the next one I will do my graphic novels. I don't know when, but yeah, this will certainly be a mini-potted series of my little bookshelf tour. So yeah, I'll do the graphic novel part, the second part, about all my graphic novels soon. And again, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.